Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly glad you're here today because we are going to unpack what is, without a doubt, the greatest cold case in global art history. Seriously, this is a mystery that has completely baffled historians, art collectors, and detectives for over 200 years. So put down your modern true crime podcast for a second because we're traveling all the way back to 18th century Japan to track down a literal ghost. We're looking for an artist whose work you have almost certainly seen, but whose true identity is still one of the art world's most fiercely guarded secrets. Okay, let's dive into this. 10. That is the exact number of months this artist's entire career lasted. Just 10 months, from May 1794 to February 1795. He just appeared, completely out of nowhere, totally fully formed with this incredibly distinct style. He absolutely dominated the Edo publishing scene for that brief little window, and then vanished. No warm-up, no amateur early sketches, no lingering late career phase, just a 10-month explosion of pure genius. And what makes those 10 months even more impossible to wrap your head around? Well, over 145 masterpieces were produced in that fleeting window. Just think about the sheer logistics of that for a second. We're talking about highly detailed, meticulously crafted woodblock prints. To produce 145 works in 10 months means this unknown artist was churning out a brand new masterpiece practically every 2 days. I mean, it's a level of creative output that totally defies logic. And then, boom, he vanishes into thin air, leaving zero physical trace of who he actually was.
Section 1. The Ghost of Ukiyoe. A Sudden Appearance.
So let's set the scene here. It's 1794 in Edo, the city we now know as Tokyo, and the ukiyo-e art scene is absolutely booming. Out of nowhere, a new name drops, Tos洲Sai Sharaku. And this was not some quiet indie debut, okay? Sharaku was launched with the 18th century equivalent of a massive, multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. His debut series featured 28 incredibly luxurious portraits using this extremely expensive black mica background technique. This ultra-premium launch was exclusively funded by Tsuteya Juzaburo, literally the most powerful and influential publisher in all of Edo. But here's the crazy part. This massive investment completely tanked. Why? Well, it all comes down to a total clash in expectations. The Edo public demanded idealized beauty. They wanted their favorite kabuki actors to look heroic, flawless, and conventionally gorgeous. But Sharaku? He delivered brutal hyperrealism. He drew exactly what he saw. He amplified their flaws, their large noses, their wrinkles, and their glaring expressions. In fact, the historical text called the Ukiyoe Riko captures the local outrage perfectly. It notes his work was drawn too true to life, made it too revealing, did not last long. You have to remember, kabuki theater at the time featured male actors playing female roles. These actors were known as ongagata. The fans really wanted these actors to look delicate and purely feminine in their prints. But Sharaku drew them with their masculine jawlines, their stubble, and sharp features. He was just way too honest. He completely stripped away the illusion of the theater, and the Edo public absolutely hated it. Because of this massive commercial failure, his publisher took a huge financial hit, and within a single year, Sharaku was gone. Section 2. Flop to global phenomenon. A wild global ride. So how does an artist who was a total flop in his own time, someone whose work couldn't even sell in his own city, become one of the most recognized names in the whole world? It's a fascinating twist, especially for art lovers outside of Japan. Sharaku debuted in 1794 and disappeared in 1795. Flash forward to the late 19th century, and there's this massive boom in Europe called Japanism. Western artists are obsessing over Japanese woodblock prints. Masters like Hokusai and Hiroshige are being celebrated in Paris and London, everywhere. But Sharaku? He is completely ignored. He doesn't even make it into the major European anthologies of Japanese art. He was a ghost in the West, too, until the year 1910. That's when a German scholar named Julius Kurth published a really groundbreaking book, simply titled Sharaku. Kurth looked at these forgotten, quote-unquote, ugly prints and saw something nobody else did. Absolute psychological brilliance. Thanks to that 1910 rediscovery, Sharaku wasn't just brought back into the ukiyo-e fold. He was elevated to the highest ranks of global art. If you're looking at this from an international perspective, this is where it gets absolutely amazing. He is now frequently cited right alongside Rembrandt and Velázquez as one of the world's 3 great portrait painters. His ability to capture the raw, unfiltered human soul with just a few bold lines completely shifted how the entire world viewed Japanese portraiture. Practically overnight, his art was commanding astronomical prices at international auctions. Section 3. Clues left behind. the bizarre evidence. Naturally, the higher his fame skyrocketed globally, the louder the question became, who actually was this guy? If we're going to solve a 200-year-old cold case, we really need to examine the weird anomalies left behind at the crime scene. First up, he exclusively used one publisher, Tsutaya Juzaburo. No other publisher ever printed a Sharaku piece. That is highly unusual for a working artist who actually needed to make a living. Second, he never painted erotica, which is known as shunga. Almost every single major ukiyo-e artist did this to pay the bills, but not Sharaku. Why? Was he maybe restricted by his social class? And third, in an 1802 satirical book that basically mapped out famous ukiyo-e artists, Sharaku is literally drawn as an isolated island. His own peers viewed him as a total outcast, just an absolute alien in their artistic community.
And then there's this really intriguing piece of evidence. In his later prints, researchers have found at least 5 completely unthinkable printing errors. We are talking about the wrong actor names and incorrect poetry printed right there on the final artwork. Remember, his publisher Tsutaya was famous for his meticulous, perfectionist quality control. For these shockingly sloppy mistakes to actually make it to the final print, well, it strongly suggests something chaotic was happening behind the scenes. Were they rushing? Was the whole project falling apart? Or were there just too many cooks in the kitchen?
Section 4, the studio conspiracy. Was Sharaku a team?
That idea of too many cooks brings us to a massive, mind-bending theory. What if Tos洲Sai Sharaku wasn't a single human being at all? Over the years, experts have actually proposed more than 20 different famous identities to explain that impossible creative output we talked about earlier. Could it have been Katsushika Hokusai, the legendary master who painted the Great Wave? Or maybe Kitagawa Utamaro, the master of idealized beauty, secretly experimenting with a dark alter ego? Some even point the finger at the publisher himself, Tsutaya Juzaburo, suggesting he was the one who picked up the brush.
Let me walk you through the logic of this incredibly compelling theory. Step 1. 145 highly detailed works in 10 months is, quite frankly, functionally impossible for one single person to sketch, design, and finalize. Step 2. Therefore, it must have been a secret collaboration of master artists, a specialized task force, basically, set up by the publisher Tsutaya, utilizing stars like Hokusai and Utamaro. And step 3. The name itself. In Japanese, Sharakusai is a play on words meaning cheeky or nonsense. The theory goes that the name Sharaku was literally just an inside joke among these master artists, essentially saying, hey, don't take this seriously, it's just a cheeky experiment. I mean, it perfectly explains his sudden appearance, his rapidly changing styles, and that massive, totally impossible volume of art.
Section 5. Unmasking the No Actor, Saito Jurobei. It's an incredibly fun theory, right? But recently, historical researchers have backed away from the big conspiracy idea to focus on one prime historical suspect, Saito Jurobei. For a long time, old notes in the Ukiyoe Riko claim Sharaku is actually a no actor named Saito Jurobei, living in the Hachibori district of Edo. Now, for decades, historians completely dismissed this as just a rumor, mainly because there was zero proof this man even existed. But recently, some absolutely amazing new evidence was unearthed. Samurai rosters from the Awa clan in Tokushima were discovered, and right there in the official documents was his name. Saito Jurobei was real. He was an elite samurai-class no actor. He actually lived in Hachibori right when Sharaku was active, and he was in his early 30s, which is pretty much the exact perfect age to be taking on a massive, ambitious artistic project. The paper trail matches his identity flawlessly. But, and there's always a but in a cold case, we have a glaring, missing motive. As convincing as the paper trail is, it leaves us with a massive psychological question. Why would a high-ranking, samurai-class no actor suddenly start churning out commercial ukiyo-e prints of kabuki actors? Think about it. It would be like a classical Shakespearean stage actor secretly moonlighting to draw tabloid caricatures of reality TV stars. It just doesn't quite fit the social norms of the time. And that is exactly why, despite the incredible documentary evidence, this 200-year-old cold case remains, technically, wide open. We have the impossible timeline, the rejected hyperrealism, the massive global rediscovery, the cheeky studio conspiracy, and an elite nah actor with a completely missing motive. You've heard the clues, the anomalies, and the evidence. So I leave the final judgment up to you. Who do you think Sharaku really was?